A few years ago, a decision was made by the annual conference that when a church was closed, that when the resolution of closure came to the annual conference for action, that pictures of the church buildings would be displayed so that as we voted on the closures, we would see the church. Because there would be people who might be present, who might not be present, who could remember. That was the church where I was baptized. That was the church where I was married. That was the church where someone I love had their funeral. That was the church where I first made profession of faith in Jesus. The church buildings are places we remember where we met God. In the time of Jesus, the premier, really the only place where people were sure that human beings and God met was at the temple of Jerusalem. When the people had returned from the Babylonian exile, they had rebuilt the temple. The one built by Solomon had been destroyed. They rebuilt a temple. But when Herod the Great was designated king of the Jews, though he was not himself Jewish, he wanted to get the favor of the people to whom he was said to be king. And so he began a project to rebuild, reconstruct, make magnificent the temple in Jerusalem. And it was a project that went on for the rest of his life and had been going on even beyond his life. In the final analysis, the rebuilding was completed just a few years before the temple was destroyed again. If you were to go to Jerusalem, or if you've seen pictures of the Western Wall, that's the only part of that temple, the temple from Jesus' time, that still stands. People will put written prayers into cracks in the wall. If you don't have a head covering and you're a man, you are given a head covering, a kind of a cardboard yarmulke to wear, because it's a holy place. It's the only part of the temple that's still around. Jesus comes to the temple. And there are rules about the worship at the temple. The sacrificial animals must be without blemish. You might have a lamb or a calf or a pigeon or dove at home that's without blemish, but after traveling with it to Jerusalem, it's not going to be without blemish anymore. So there have to be animals for sale. You pay a temple tax. On a day-to-day basis, you deal with coins provided by the Roman Empire. But those coins have the head of the emperor on them, and the emperor claims to be a god. That coin is a graven image. You can't pay your temple tax with that. There has to be someone to exchange those coins for plain coins to be used for paying your temple tax. Jesus comes in and attacks that system, drives out the changers of money, drives out the animals, tells the sellers of the pigeons to get out. So what's that about? Why does he do that? Well, some think maybe they were cheated. If you're the only source of the proper animal, maybe you mark up the price more than it should be marked up. If you're changing money, maybe you take some profit, maybe more profit than you should for the exchange of money. Maybe he's concerned by dishonesty. Also, that place of exchange, that place of buying, was in the court of the Gentiles. It was the only place where Gentiles could pray, could show their honor to the God of Israel. And if you've been around a cattle pen, or around a sheep pen, or around a goat pen, or even around where there are a bunch of birds being kept, maybe a chicken coop, you know a couple of things. It's loud, and it doesn't smell very good. And the incense from the sacrificial system going on further into the temple is probably not going to cover the smell. And this is where Gentiles have to pray. Maybe Jesus was upset about that. But again, the temple was the meeting place between God and humans. And Jesus, when he's challenged, says, tear it down, and I'll build it back in 3 days. Well, it was torn down. It was burned by the Romans in 70. And it's never been rebuilt. So what was he talking about? Well, his disciples understand later. They may not understand at the time. They may be as baffled by his statement that you tear this down and I'll build it back in 3 days as anyone else. But they understand later. The meeting place between God and human beings is now not the temple. The meeting place between God and human beings is the body and blood of Jesus. Wherever the cross is remembered, wherever the death and resurrection of Jesus is remembered, is the meeting place between God and human beings. We offer that meeting place as we come to the table of the Lord. That meeting place is here.